Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of The Crossing. So obviously, I try to avoid reading too much about the show. Obviously, I caught a little bit here and there, saw some previews, but still, I was able to walk away from the series premiere with a lot of surprises, because obviously I knew going into this that there were going to be like, oh, these refugees. What I didn't expect, and it's still something that kind of got spoiled from the previews, is that it's like 400 people that died. So like only 47 people ended up surviving the transition with like this whole form of time travel, which is kind of interesting. But because basically them ending up where they were was not supposed to be how it worked. Like that's why so many of them died, because they were like they ended up beneath the water, and before many were able to realize what was going on, they drowned, which is like, that sucks hard. Obviously, we got introduced to some of the characters, like Leia, the little girl. We also got to meet Hannah, Thomas, Caleb, and his wife Rebecca. Which, the way it sounds from their perspective, it's like they've actually had a family before. Especially when like Rebecca was talking to Leia, it's like, no, I've had like I remember when my little girl was 8, and it's like, oh, we're here to start a family again. So whatever family they had in the future is gone. Hence why they're the only ones here. I doubt it's a situation of like they were like anyone that they knew specifically was one of the like 400 that died. There were some people we saw amongst the 47 that did look like, were near the bodies crying, so. We get introduced to, I would assume is going to be one of our main protagonists, and that is Jude, the sheriff of this small town. It turns out, it seems like he has a passed away. The Homeland Security agent, Emma, talked about it, because she's like, because basically he comes from Oakland, but basically he's here now. And the way she talks about it, it seems like him relocating here wasn't 100% his own decision. It seems like there was something that went down, because he made a comment like, oh, I'm fine with chaos. It's like, your time in Oakland and the reason why you're here makes it seem like that's not the case. So, which I guess that means it's one of those things of like, oh yeah, she's higher up in the food chain, like, like police wise, because she's Homeland. So obviously she did her homework on like who she was potentially working with, essentially. Well, taking this case over from, because it does seem like already from the beginning we do learn that he's kind of got a situation all on his own, because not only just the old Oakland situation, it seems like he is divorced, because his I can assume his ex-wife is there with their son Oliver, and his son Oliver was supposed to be coming up pretty soon to spend the weekend with him. So, which obviously it is kind of sucky timing, because it's like all of this is happening while his son's kind of supposed to be spending the weekend with him, so that's going to get complicated. Because like, beyond that, we don't really know too much about his personal life yet, so that was kind of interesting. This whole situation is finding out more about this whole quote-unquote war. Apparently, the way they talk about it, it's not just a war, it's literally a genocide. Basically an extinction, and it was like, oh, of humans? So I'm like, oh, these aliens or something like that? It seems like there's a group known as Apex. They are basically the next step in evolution. They're basically genetically enhanced humans. They're kind of like basically mutants to humans, like X-Men mutants, essentially what it kind of seems like. They're basically certain cognitive aspects about themselves, and their reflexes are increased. We saw that when it came to Reese, played by Natalie Martinez. Like most recent things, Amaru in season 3 of From Dusk Till Dawn, the TV show. Obviously, she was. I'm blanking on her character's name. Murphy from APB is like the most recent thing I saw her in. So I was like, oh, I had no idea that she was going to be like a main character in the show. So that was kind of pretty neat when I saw her in the previews. Also, completely looking where the fact is like Steve Zahn is like I think it's Zahn. Steve Zahn is Jude, which Steve Zahn's done so many damn things over the years. So it's hard to just kind of pick one thing. I'm trying to remember what the last thing he was in that I saw recently. I'm kind of blanking, but nevertheless, the actress who plays Emma seems familiar too. I just can't quite place her. Nevertheless, I'm getting off topic here. So it seems like these apexes kind of run things in the future, and it seems like the basic humanity's on its last leg. Apexes control everything. Now, what we don't really know for sure, I mean, maybe they kind of talked about it, but maybe I missed it, but it's never really explained like how apexes came about. Is it like natural evolution, or was it like a science experiment evolution type of thing, Because from what we can tell, it seems like Reese is one, so it's like, it seems like they look like any normal human. You won't be able to really tell them apart. But it seems like so far, like I said, enhanced reflexes, like the way Reese was able to jump and like move, like react the way she's able to so quickly. She's superhumanly strong. It does seem like it also like, because at one point when she was in that restaurant slash bar, when she was listening to the TV, like she was able to block out all the other noise and focus on the TV. So it's like, I guess not really selective hearing. I guess it's enhanced hearing that they can like fine tune their hearing to kind of channel like what specific sounds they want, kind of like a Daredevil thing kind of going on, which is kind of interesting. But like I said, beyond what really, other than that, like we don't know what kind of makes them what they are. Like, how did humanity really get to that point? Because it's kind of interesting too, because it's like obviously there's certain aspects like you could tell immediately, because there was a whole situation with like the moment like Reese looked at the picture and she saw like there was being a fish, like, you know, people were hunting fish. She looked at her food and she pushed it aside, because it seems like obviously they don't eat meat in the future, because it's like, oh yeah, you know, they actually eat meat from animals here. And it's just kind of like it seems like it's not necessarily that he is the leader of this whole situation, because I don't think it's just anyone's really a leader. It's just a situation of like, they're just all in this together. But it seems like Caleb might be the one we kind of see taking charge more often than not. He's the one that kind of went to Emma about, you know, a lot of the groups, the refugees' concerns and stuff like that. So it makes me think he's going to be kind of like their spokesperson for a while. I'm sure it might turn into a situation where it's like, oh, you don't speak for all of us type of thing. But I mean, it's like I said, at least for now, it seems like he might be the one that kind of takes charge. But we'll ultimately have to wait and see. Because he's the one he's like, yeah, things might not have been turned out the way we thought they were, but it's like, here we have a great opportunity, you know, because it seems like they have no other motives besides wanting to live here and start a new life. But Thomas does bring up the fact is that there is another group. He brings up that they're normal people, but another group, because everyone in that group, this refugee group of 47, it seems like, I would assume most of them think that they're the first group, but apparently there was another group before them. And it seems like Thomas kind of talks to the guy that Emma reports to, was basically breaking it down to him that basically they've come to change history, which I kind of figured that was kind of the main reason why like this wouldn't be the first group. It's like, okay. So, and the way he's like, oh, I've been here longer than you think. So it's like they were sent further into the past so they can allocate themselves into this modern time, and then take what they know and basically try and change the future. Which I wonder, did he know ahead of time? Like, the dude who Emma reports to, like, did he know that the second group was coming? Was this kind of like a last-ditch effort of like, well, basically humanity's on its last leg. We need to get as many people out of here as possible to make sure that the future still lives on in some shape or form? I don't know, because I feel like there had to be an ulterior motive to sending all those people into the past like that, because it's just like regular people trying to start new lives, you know. I'm actually kind of surprised too that I mean, because that says a lot too, because they didn't come with some cover story. They like, yeah, I know it's going to sound crazy, but we're just going to tell you the truth right from the start. So that was just kind of interesting. I was like, you know, in other situations like this, they'd have a cover story, but I guess that shows you that this isn't some like official thing, that it was just kind of like these are regular people just trying to live their lives. I kind of figured her boss must have had something to do with it. The moment he was telling Emma, like, no, let's not tell anyone else, because all that's going to do is they're going to laugh at us. I'm like, he was shutting that down too quickly. Like, I feel like if he was like, okay, let's take this, but the fact is he wanted to avoid telling anyone else on the, like, higher up on the food chain and stuff like that, made me kind of go, okay, that's something. Obviously, you were fully confirmed when it's like, he had Thomas meet him on the bridge, and it's like the vehicle that dropped Thomas off just left. I'm like, I was surprised it didn't end with Thomas getting killed, because the moment the guy like revealed himself, I was like, oh, I thought he was going to kill you, but it's like, no, I guess it's okay. Because I guess because he's in the position he's in, he can help Thomas out. Because Thomas wanted to try and exchange that information for a better situation in his time. Because I'm curious also, like, do they not have future knowledge that they could use to, I mean, I guess because, like, whatever world they come from, because, like, for example, Caleb is born 150 years from now, so Caleb's maybe, 30s, 40s, so whatever world they're coming from is they are coming from it at least, say, 190 to maybe 200 years into the future. That's where my mindset is, so how long before we get to that? Because I'm sure like things were going down even before Caleb was born. It's not like Caleb was born into that. So I can only assume, like, which is kind of crazy to think about that too, because it's like the world drastically changed and humanity's literally almost towards extinction in almost 200 years. I think that like it's far away, but at the same time not that far away, you know. If it was like thousands of years into the future, that's one thing, but this is like that's only like a century, like, you know, like basically 2 centuries away. So like I said, that's what the early math is kind of telling us. So it might happen even sooner, at least the beginning of the end. So, or sort of say, because these are people who are escaping from it. I mean, this is time travel going one way, because who's to say what world looks like even further in the future, whether like apexes are all that are left. Like I said, is it like an assimilation thing? Is it just kind of like a mutation thing that happens and you become one? Because we do see that Leia has these burn marks on her arms, and obviously, Reese is obviously her mom. So the question then becomes like, is it kind of something that's genetic? Like, does that mean that, like, because Reese is one, it automatically makes Leia kind of potentially one? And is that what those burn marks are supposed to represent, or is that supposed to be something else entirely? So now that we do know that there are more people who were from the future who've come here beforehand, the question is, how many came? Were there all? Because that's the thing too, is like, how many of that initial group survived too? Was it like all of the group? Did they have the same circumstances happen, or was it just this group? Because obviously it seems like it's a faulty system. And maybe it's mainly because it was transporting so many people. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, obviously it has the potential to basically teleport almost 450 people. So if it could do that, and if it worked out the first time, if it potentially did, could you imagine just how many people scattered or all across the place have been here waiting to do this? Like I said, it also comes back to whether or not they knew that this other group was coming, but like, obviously, they're probably slowly living their lives and trying to change things so they can make sure that the future they come from never happens. That's how those things typically go. But it makes you wonder what changes are going to make. And obviously, you know, it's something that Thomas kind of made a comment of, like, early on, being like, yeah, you know, it's like sacrifices have to be made to kind of get what you want. And it's like, in this particular situation, it's like, well, you know, to kind of change history, which is a big thing. It's like, you have to make a lot of sacrifices. So, like I said, once again, reiterating what I brought up earlier, I was so certain Thomas was going to be one. I was like, wow, we're really going to kill off one of you guys already? There's only 47 of you. It's like, oh, no, never mind. You're fine. So I guess ultimately that's why, because the people who picked up Reese were kind of like, oh, it was a miracle that she survived. So it's kind of like, well, it kind of makes sense why she was able to kind of save Leia the way she was able to, like, when no one else kind of was. So it's just kind of super sad to think about so many people like going just like that. And obviously Homeland's kind of trying to keep this, you know, hush hush. And even Emma's kind of telling, even though she took the case from Jude, she's telling him to kind of take things like slow, keep things kind of low key, because it's like, I think she has the best of intentions in heart, because she's like, yeah, she doesn't believe their whole time travel story, but, you know, obviously she has her doubts, because it's just kind of like she doesn't really believe them. But after seeing what Reese is capable of, now she's starting to believe about these apexes. But it does put it in her mind that if Reese is here, and hearing what Thomas said about there potentially have been other people who came before them, so there could be apexes that are already there, or there might be some already kind of snuck amongst this group. So, because that also begs a question too, like, if she's an apex, why did she escape? Because, you know, who knows? Maybe it's going to be one of those situations, kind of like a Romeo and Juliet story, where it's like Reese is an apex and Leia's dad was just a regular normal guy. And so, I don't know. Like I said, it also comes back to how do the whole apex thing happen? Is it like, maybe like Reese found out, you know, what apexes are like in the future, and she doesn't want to become that, so she wanted to get her and her daughter a better place in the past. You know, maybe they would have forced Leia to become one too, or maybe it's like Leia can't become one and she would have been considered like an abomination or something. Like, so many different routes. Like I said, this is like the series premiere. Very little is known, but this is me kind of throwing out wild thoughts and theories already. So now, some other interesting things we did pick up from this episode. One interesting thing being, like, the fact is that Reese could speak Russian. So is it a situation of like apexes can speak any known language, or like, why specifically that? Like, it could be just like, oh, she saw the tattoo and was like, oh, you must be Russian, so let me speak Russian to you. Or what? Is it just that it just happens to be her expertise or something? Or is it just kind of like they know all languages type of thing? It's just kind of like a little thing, and I wonder, is that going to I don't know, it just seemed like that could be set up for something, it could be meant to be, it could be what makes Apexes are meant to be like more able to kind of fit in. There is believed to be a normal group that came first, but who said, well, I feel like if it was an Apex who came back, like in a part of that group or whatever, like in that particular case, I feel like they would have killed Thomas immediately. So there's that, but it's like, who's to say none did, but I don't know, this is kind of interesting that pops up. But other two things we kind of also learned about the future in this series is, one, there are apparently no stars, because when Rebecca wakes up, she goes, oh my god, there's stars. So you can either assume either most of humanity lives underground, and or like the sky is so polluted, or that, the stars are blocked out of the sky, something like that. Or it just could be like something, I guess, I don't know if something affecting the Earth would make it impossible to see stars. I was like, nah, the Earth's messed up on its axis or some weird crap like that. I was like, I don't think so. So one of the, either the first or second one. And then another one was a whole Hannah situation, because she talked about getting glasses from Royce, because she's like, yeah, it's not as bright where she's from. So, which could fit either one. It could be like, well, because they lived underground, or two, just because most of the sky is so polluted that it's covered up, so they don't get direct sun like that. So either or. So it's kind of interesting learning those tidbits about the future. Like I said, a lot of this stuff that came up like in the episode is kind of already got spoiled because of all the constant previews, so you couldn't help but hear and figure. But I like I said, I still appreciate a little bit we were able to kind of pull from this, and I'm very interested going forward. Obviously, I've avoided looking at anything going forward. And you're like, oh, this season. I was like, no, I want to be surprised with every new episode to see like how this whole situation develops and what the story continues to develop into. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.